Hello and welcome to this new video. Today we got a replay review of PatientOwl, and he's on the bottom air slot, and let's see what he's doing. So he's starting with 2 pigeons. Oh well, okay, he going for 4 maxes and 2 pigeons. Both openings would be fine. If you go for 2 pigeons at the beginning, you just have 1 earlier expanding engineers. But yeah, as I said, both openings are fine. I would usually go for 4 maxes and then 2 pigeons, because yes, you have earlier expanding engineers, but you just get the expansion earlier in this area, while I get the expansion maxes earlier here. So there's basically no difference. Yeah, so the first NG doesn't go to the hydro, the first NG goes to these maxes, and the second NG goes to this max, and the third NG goes for the hydro. That's usually how it goes. And don't forget the move commands. So usually with this NG I just walk around these trees, but if you go between them, you make a waypoint here. You reclaim all these trees, then you make a waypoint here, and then you reclaim these trees, and you probably make one waypoint here, and then reclaim these trees, and then you go here. Because now it's basically irrelevant that you manually reclaim, because this NG will walk right next to the reclaim node, as if, like, if you click now a max, the NG won't use his full range, but it would walk right next to the max and then start building it. And the same is true for reclaim orders. The NG will walk right next to the middle of the tree group, and so there is a probability that the NG will, by doing that, crush outer trees of this tree group, and the tree group gets deleted, basically. So always use waypoints. Yeah, idle engineers. You don't queue up, like, I don't queue up all the orders of one engineer. I queue up some orders till my next NG comes out, and then I send the next NG. And when I find time, for example, if I have one engineer just going here and I make just move commands here, then I can queue up this order, then I can continue to queue up this order. You don't, like, because now you have a lot of NGs just sitting idle here. You can't do all the manual reclaiming of this NG while being so fast that this NG hasn't come out yet. So it's really important to stop with this after the next NG comes out. Because you see, you have now, and this NG goes to these maxes. Once your ACU starts building the hydro, this NG stops building the hydro and walks to these expansion rods. So just focus again on where your expanding engineers should go. So the first engineer goes to these 3 maxes, the second engineer go to these 3 maxes, and then a land factory, here also a land factory, and the third engineer goes to this hydro, and the ACU assisted. And once the ACU actually assists the hydro, this engineer stops building the hydro and go for these maxes. The next engineer goes around these trees, reclaim this max, get this rock, and goes back to the max. And every future NG just gonna reclaim. So just look at the build order again, at the build order tutorial again, and try to mimic that. And always never have just the factory move command like that. You always want to have an attack move. And if you don't, or in the beginning at least, you want to adjust the waypoint to the direction where your NG would want to come out. Because if you expand in this direction, you want the waypoint here, so that the NG comes out to the right side. If you want to expand here, you want your NG to come out on the left side, so the way is shorter. And once you have got all your expansions, you want to make attack moves. It's really important, because if you do the build order properly, you won't have enough power to mess up. Like if your 4th or 5th NG doesn't go for attack move, you're gonna store power. And yeah, usually you can upgrade the max once the ACU, when he finished building these 2 pigeons, when the ACU is walking to the hydro and the ACU is passing these 2 maxes, then you can start upgrading it. And now you see you have a lot of idle engineers which could already reclaim trees, but they are basically useless now, because you can't use them now for reclaiming trees, otherwise they break their own trees. And also these attack moves are bad, because these are all broken trees. You still gonna reclaim just broken trees. You want to have attack move here, 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 and here. And these trees, all these trees, are just trees which gonna be reclaimed the last. Like, don't focus on these trees. Yes, they are the closest to your main base, but it takes the most time to reclaim these, and you get the least amount of mass from them. So it's way better to go for these trees further away from your spawn point, because they are not broke. And now you see what's happening with you not using waypoints. You just walk there and yeah, you see all the trees are broke. And this air factory is too early. Usually after your 2nd max, you start building pigeons and your ACU assists. And you don't need the air factory yet. Like you usually build it at 5:30 and you're 2 minutes earlier than that. So there's no need to go now Tech 2 or anything. Just go for your 2nd T2 max, and then you can have 2 NGs and 1 ACU building like 15 pigeons. Also, these attack moves, as I said, never use any attack moves besides factory reclaim, because you're gonna destroy your tree groups. This NG, once it reclaims this tree, this rock, you go back through the reclaimed territory, and then you use it to assist this max once it's upgrading. And you don't need this factory here. This NG gonna build a factory, and this NG doesn't need to build a factory. And now you see the problem. You invest already resources in a Tech 2 Air HQ at minute 4. Usually at this time I would invest still completely on maxes, and this would allow me to get a huge mass advantage without being really behind on the Tech 2 air timing, because I just assist my air HQ and gonna be on the same time as you, but I have way more resources. And also you build the Tech 2 HQ for having the Tech 2 PGen, but there is no need for the Tech 2 PGen when you don't have enough mass. Like you really want to build it as late as possible, but you don't want to build it too late, because then you're gonna overflow mass because you don't have the power to spend it actually. So way more, there are multiple things here. You should have already way more mass reclaimed, but you reclaimed these broken trees, and then you should have already more maxes. And if you have more mass, these PGen amount is too low already. It works now because you don't have enough mass reclaimed, but usually this is too few PGens. And also you see you have here an unpaused max and here in paused max, but the paused max is assisted by the ACU. So, and then you're unpausing these maxes instead of just unpausing this max which is assisted. Like in the best case scenario, you have only one max upgrading and all the build power is there. But now you have it spread out on a lot of maxes. This max was upgrading 2, this max, and this max. You have 4 maxes upgrading while being on 30 mass income. And this max is actually upgrading 2 because you're NG assisted. So you have 5 maxes upgrading, but you don't have the mass for it. And it would be way better if you would just stop everything but this max and probably this max. So you want to have your build power optimally concentrated and don't start so many maxes, especially if you can't afford it. And then you want to split out your attack move. Like this attack move should be already here. Ideally you want to have every NG should have its own attack move, but in practice this won't work. So you have probably like 2 or 3 NGs per attack move, but this is a way too big clump already. And now you're overflowing mass, so you need to really unpause some maxes now. Because you're finished on the Tech 2 maxes, but you don't upgrade new Tech 2 maxes. And so you just overflow. And now you have the Tech 2 at minute 5:30. This is usually the timing when I start my Tech 2 Air HQ. But there's no need for it. Like you're on, I don't know, on 30 mass income, or at the moment even on 20 mass income. You don't need the Tech 2 PGen. There's no need for it. You don't build the Tech 2 PGen just because you build a Tech 2 PGen. You build a Tech 2 PGen because at that timing you don't have enough power in form of Tech 1 PGens to sustain the mass income you've got. But you don't have the mass income, so you don't need the Tech 2 PGen. So really, at 5:30 you start upgrading usually your Tech 2 Air HQ. Otherwise, there is no need. And yeah, and also don't build power storage. You can build 1 power storage, but everything other than that is just a waste. And then you're also building mass storages while having still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Tech 1 maxes. Never build mass storages before being full Tech 2 maxes. So usually at that timing you want to be more or less fully reclaimed. And the reason why you aren't is that while you're not using everywhere factory reclaim commands, that's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, that you built the hydro with an NG which was too early. And if this NG would have traveled already here, this factory would be built earlier, and this would also result in more NGs actually reclaiming here. And yeah, then the NGs aren't spread out enough. So if you wouldn't have here these 8 NGs and instead would have had 8 NGs spread out here, that more territory would be reclaimed already. And you have also a lot of broken trees because you didn't reclaim good enough manually. So yeah, and you always want to move your attack moves, especially on the Tech 2 stage. Once you're building Tech 2 pigeons, these trees gonna be reclaimed very fast, and you have to really drag these attack moves very fast, because like these tree groups get just reclaimed very fast, and that's usually happening when you're building your Tech 2 pigeons. And you see, usually at this timing you should be full Tech 2 by now. You're not, because you don't reclaim efficient enough, and you unpaused some maxes you shouldn't have unpaused, and paused some maxes you shouldn't have paused. Then you're making these mass storages. You went very early for the Tech 2 HQ, and all these mass which went into the Tech 2 HQ couldn't went into the mass extractors. And economy works exponentially. So if I have more mass, I can put more mass into more mass. So this is an exponential growth, and if you start very early your Tech 2 Air HQ, this mass is missing on upgrading your maxes. And this is a big snowball effect and results in you being very far behind. And usually I have the option enabled: once my NGs assist the max unpauses. You should really do that too, because then it's easier for you to have concentrated build power instead of splitted build power, which is always better. And don't double click these maxes, because they are all Tech 1 maxes. You should really focus on upgrading these first, and after that you can build mass storages. And you see, even though you went very early for the Tech 2 Air timing, you're behind on the Tech 3 timing. First of all, you reclaimed this factory, which shouldn't be done, because you need the build power. And second, you didn't assist the Air HQ upgrading. So now you're kind of behind in eco and behind on the Tech 3 Air timing. And yeah, I mean, the reason we discussed this, yeah. But I think, I mean, compared to your opponent, you should be totally fine. So now this is more or less good. It's good that you build a Tech 3 engineer, then a scout, and then multiple engineers. But don't build so many engineers. You have 7 engineers queued. You need probably, you need 3 in total. You need 1 engineer here, 1 engineer here, and 1 engineer here. Otherwise, you don't need any Tech 3 engineers in the opening stage. You can't spend the mass anyway. Like, you're just overbuilding build power, and this is quite expensive. A Tech 3 engineer costs over 300 mass. So if you build 7 NGs, that's 2100 mass. This is half a Tech 3 max. Half a Tech 3 max in NGs. For build power you can't spend any anyway, so there's no reason to build them. Queue up 1 engineer, 1 scout plane, 2 engineers, and then you can build ASF once your pigeon is ready. Now everything should assist the pigeon, not the Tech 3 NG. Just usually the first NG is just there to initiate the build. The Tech 3 NG just initiates the build and then walks to this expansion. The second NG goes without assisting this pigeon to this expansion. And the third one can actually assist the pigeon. Once it's ready, it walks to this max expansion. But the main build power, which is building your pigeon, should be the Tech 1 and Tech 2 engineers in your base. I mean, you're far ahead compared to your air opponent. He's on full Tech 1 maxes at minute 12. So if I would see this, I would usually go just for a full air rush. Like I would don't make any maxes, just building ASF and strats. Because there's no way he can keep up with your production. Because he has just no maxes. But if you can also play it for the long run, but if you play for playing optimally and winning as fast as possible, this is the way to go. And now you end up, you don't have, well, I mean, you can. The problem is, first of all, you want to upgrade these maxes, these expansion maxes. These should be the priority to upgrade, because it's easier to start here and then end up in the base with the Tech 3 NGs than starting here and ending up with some random engineers around, because you want to have these engineers to actually expand your air grid, etc. So the first NGs usually go here to these maxes. And now you see you already overflowing quite a lot of mass. And there's no need usually. I mean, you have to decide now. Do I want to go for early air or do I want to go for max upgrades? And usually you don't have enough eco, especially not when you're doing your first Tech 3 max, to build a factory and a max. Probably it works out now because you have a lot of mass in the bank, but usually it shouldn't. And usually what I also do is make a waypoint here, so my ASF are closer to the happening here, and they are not annoying me in my base. And now it's really important to keep the mass bar low. This is #1 priority in scaling your air game now, because you can upgrade all the maxes you want, but if you're gonna overflow the mass, it's completely irrelevant to the game. It isn't really about the mass you generate, it's more about the mass you spend. So if you don't spend your mass, you can generate all the mass in the world, it's irrelevant for the outcome of the game. And that's basically the biggest challenge in the mid-air game. Like I would probably say even in the early air game, but there are more complex variables. But in this air game, in this mid stage, before being full Tech 3 and after having your Tech 3 air HQ, it's really not overflowing. And now you instantly need to build a PGen, because otherwise you're gonna store power usually. Yeah, right. That's a good move. And upgrade maxes, really. You shouldn't look at how full the bar is. You should look at the number, because now you could already start 2 maxes. And I don't know why this NG is walking here. Why isn't the NG walking here, and then on its way it can upgrade all the maxes? This is better than doing it like that. Okay, now you're starting maxes, that's good to keep your mass bar low. And usually I would scout my opponent so I know how many air factories he has. The moment he hasn't a single, he has a single one, just building ASF. So I wouldn't build more than 2 air factories, because 2 air factories are enough to keep my air advantage, but the rest of my eco I can put totally into maxes. And he's just starting to cap the maxes, while I have already multiple Tech 3 maxes. So I'm ahead on ASF and I'm ahead on eco. So this should be a really easy air win. And you see you have over 7,000 mass in the bank. Upgrade this max, you can upgrade this max. Yeah, oh, I mean, you're doing it. I think it's probably also an APM issue. You just don't react fast enough. And there is no real training for that. The only thing you can really do is just being experienced in what you do. And so things happen more automatically. And yeah, but there's no specific training you can do to improve your APM or anything. There are also a lot of other things which are more important than APM. I mean, there are a lot of very high rated players, like 2.5k rated player, who have an APM of like 30, 40 or 50. So APM isn't important, but it's certainly effective. And I think this happens, or I assume this happens just because you double clicked and it's more of an accident. But yeah, this shouldn't happen. You always want to make Tech 1 maxes, then Tech 2 maxes, then you want to cap all your Tech 2 maxes, then you want to go Tech 3 maxes, and once you're full Tech 3 max, you can start making these mass fabs. And I mean, control K'ing your build power is a totally fine decision, and I make this also. But then I need some substitution, because otherwise I'm gonna overflow. If I control K my build power, which is, as I said, a complete fine choice, then I need 1 factory building Tech 3 engineers, so I don't run into the danger of overflowing my mass. And in this case, I would already upgrade this max and move these engineers to upgrade this max move these engineers to this max and upgrade. Even though if I can't control K it, it's better to not control K your max and upgrade it than overflowing your mass. So if it has to go really fast, then just do it by Tech 1 engineers. And if you haven't scouted a nuke, then don't build the SMD at this time. You can build an SMD easily at minute 20 when you're full Tech 3 max and have some air factories and stuff. Then you can build your SMD. But at the moment, this max is still Tech 2, and it would be far better to upgrade this max than building the SMD. I mean, the SMD isn't needed. Like, there's no reason, no nukes or anything. But SMD is quite expensive. It costs, it costs like 1.5 Tech 3 maxes, and all these PDs and shields. This costs probably together like 3 SMDs, like 3 Tech 3 maxes. So it's very expensive, and there's no need for it. When I build my SMD, it's usually when I have full Tech 3 max and I'm really far with building my air grid. Usually I do it at minute 22 when I'm able to spend all my eco from all my Tech 3 maxes into an air grid. Then I usually build the SMD, or when I scout it or anything. And usually I use just move commands for all these engineers, because you see they're walking here, then they notice, oh no, the engie is already away, and now they move all the way again back. So usually I just use normal move commands. And now I mean, probably not too early, but you don't want to run into the danger of overflowing once you're full Tech 3. So you should consider building some more Tech 3 engies and control K-ing your Tech 1 engies. But otherwise, you see here's already a lot of ASF actually. You have 28 ASF. He has 33. I mean, it's totally fine. I mean, you have double the amount of eco. So that's totally fine. Now it's really important that you don't waste these ASF, because you can be 100% sure that you're gonna win air as long as you don't fight air in these early stages, because you're gonna outscale him anyway. You have so much more mass than him, you're gonna have more ASF in the later game. But if you sacrifice and just use your ASF not properly, he can always farm your ASF and keep the ASF number low and win air for a long time actually. And another thing is, you see these scout planes, don't do that. The scout plane is quite expensive, and you have just scout, like if you would have like 5 ASF and 3 scouts, this would be totally enough to see everything important on the map. Because a scout costs 200 mass and an ASF costs 450 mass. So 2 scouts could be also 1 ASF, and you're sacrificing them so lighthearted. If you really want to give such an intel, do it with Tech 1 scouts, but even then I wouldn't do it like that. Just have some scout planes in your build queue, have all the move commands somewhere here, and once you have amassed like 3 or 6 scouts, then you can send them out with a distribute command, and you will see everything. There's no need for these scouts, because basically all these scouts see nothing. They provide no intel. This scout provides a bit intel, this, but a lot of these scouts don't provide anything. So it's just wasted mass. And also, you should ask your front player to give you this Omni. And also, I mean, it's quite okay, like you're not overflowing too much mass, but you could also be better at doing it. Usually at my level you don't overflow at any point more than 3k mass properly. Like everything above 3k mass is bad, because you could also have a Tech 3 max instead of this overflowed mass. But this looks very good. I mean, you have a bigger production, you have the same amount of ASF, and you have far more eco. So, I mean, at this point, the air game is won. I mean, if your eco balance would look like all the game like this, like 1000 mass in storage, it would be really good. Like this is exactly what you want to achieve. If your mass bar looks this, it's totally fine. Like this is good. And now you really need to start building Tech 3 NGs. Because you're gonna run into the problem that once you're full Tech 3 max, you can't spend your mass on anything, not on these Tech 3 maxes, and you're gonna overflow. Because Tech 3 maxes are very efficient at spending very fast overflow, and once you run out of these, you're gonna overflow a lot of times. So build enough NGs so you can scale your air grid faster, so you don't overflow. What you can also do is with these NGs build a air factory and then upgrade it to Tech 3 and have your NGs coming out there to extend your air grid here. But usually I would use the space in the top base before I use the space on the bottom half. And now you see the problem I've told you about. Once you don't really have more maxes to upgrade, you run into the overflow. So really stop building these gunships and start building Tech 3 engineers. So now you actually surpassed him in ASF count, and you have far bigger eco. So yeah, at this point it's really important to spend your eco, because you can have all the eco in the world, but if you just overflow it, as I said, it's irrelevant what your mass income is. It's more important what your mass outcome is, like what you spend actually on mass. And at the moment, this is probably the hardest part actually about the air game. To be nearly full Tech 3 max and scaling your air grid in such a way that you don't overflow. I mean, I see even 2K players fucking this up, but it's really important to scale up your Tech 3 NGs early enough. And in this moment I would just upgrade all these maxes, because there are 3 maxes. 3 maxes cost 15,000, roughly speaking. Mass, you have 17,000 in the bank, so you can easily afford it. Yeah, just upgrade all these maxes. and you're going for Tech 2 gunships. I mean, of course, you Seraphim like Tech 3 gunships. And I think it's a fine decision, but I would probably go for torps, actually. Because these gunships gonna die very fast to cruisers. And yeah, and flag is also very dangerous to them. I would just go for torp bombers. It's a safer decision, in my opinion. And now you see you're on 30,000 mass income and you're overflowing all the mass. Okay, you donated it, which is a good decision. If you see, oh, I'm overflowing mass and I can't spend it, donate it to a player who can actually spend it. That's a good decision. But in best case, it shouldn't even come to this point. And as I now repeatedly said, just build Tech 3 NGs to scale your air grid faster and upgrade these mixes. And I would build more ASF actually, because your ASF advantage isn't that big. You're on 68, on 73, and he's on 74, so he's actually a slide ahead. So I wouldn't go for so many gunships. I would go more for ASF, because the most important thing before abusing air is securing air. It's far more important to have more ASF. Like, I would rather at this point just build ASF to have a secure air win, and then I can go for gunships. Because if I actually go for these gunships and then I lose air because of this, I just harmed my team so much. I haven't done anything useful except donating a lot of reclaim here. And this air player now can just spam torps. So I did nothing but damaging my team. So I really want to ensure first that I have air domination. And usually after like 10% more ASF than your opponent, you can do that. So in this case, if you have like, I don't know, 80 ASF compared to 70 ASF or something like that, you can do that. But don't be or don't want to deal damage, because if you want to deal damage this early, there's just a huge risk that you fuck the air position for the whole game, especially when you're in such a good position actually. And in this, okay, this worked now, but usually I would have ground fired the cruiser, because once the cruiser is out, it can get really dangerous for these gunships. And now this is a bad engagement. Because you don't want to really press stop. Yes, pressing stop is better than bad micro, but at these low numbers you can easily micro it. Just select all your air fighters and just select all air fighters and press in a circle to have a good air micro. And another thing is, you always want to, if you attack with gunships, you always want to have a scout plane nearby, especially if you don't have an Omni in your team. Because, where can I see it? You see the vision radius of an ASF is just a small bit bigger than the range of its weapon. So you can't really use it to its full extent, because it needs some time for the ASF to actually see and render the enemy ASF, and at that time the enemy ASF can already shoot at you. So always have a scout plane so that you see actually when the enemy ASF are coming. And also you can have a better first engage than this, because now you just had your ASF kind of here and he just went in, and then you had to react to it. If you would have had a scout here, you could have already prevented this first bad engage. And now you see actually exactly what I meant. Like, if he does it now properly, he just spams torps now. He's going for a snipe. Well, I'm not a fan of these plays, but okay. And now you see, like, this is a giant problem. You don't build your air grid fast enough. Usually you want to have like 20 NGs, 20 Tech 3 NGs just building your air grid, because you're constantly overflowing all this mass. Like, you're already 30,000 mass in storage, and then you're overflowing 100 mass per second still. So, and you're not on full Tech 3 maxes, by the way. You're just on Tech 2 maxes here. So yeah, like this overflowing, this is by far the biggest mistake. If you wouldn't have overflowed in this case, you could have already have all this air grid and this air grid easily. If you just would have built enough build power. I think this is a misclick. And also don't have your air factories like on these random patrol routes, just have a single waypoint somewhere. I mean, you can be really happy that the enemy air player is just building ASF. Like, he just won air and continues to build ASF. This is very good for you, because he doesn't abuse air. Like, he builds air for building air but not using it, some kind of that. So I mean, you start very slowly to spend your mass because you have a bigger air grid. But usually at least one or two, like in this case, two factories should just build Tech 3 NGs. Not a single ASF, just Tech 3 NGs to be able to spend this mass. And now you build torps, but you just lost air. You can't afford to build torps. If you see this, let this die. Don't help your teammate with torps if you don't have the air control. And you don't. You have less ASF because you lost it here. I mean, it just happened to you that you built too early air to ground units and then you lost all the ASF. If you build now air to ground units, you're gonna lose again all air to ground units. Never fight air or build air to ground units when you have less ASF than your opponent. That's priority number one, to get more ASF than your opponent, and after that, then you can build air to ground units. But don't do it before that. You're just gonna harm your team, because I mean, he is just like, he doesn't react properly. Usually he should just spam torps now, and then this side would be lost already. So he could have already ended this, but decided not to by just building ASF. So you're lucky in this situation. Usually you would have already lost at least 1 point because you wanted to build these Tech 2 gunships. So really, I think it's some urge to just, oh, I want to have an impact on the game, so I build torps or I build Tech 2 gunships. But the only impact you're gonna have on the game with doing that is losing air. And if this air player is competent and build torps, your whole team has to fight against it. And that's very bad. So with these torps, you're just damaging your own team. and then you engage in an air fight with having less ASF. Never do that. If your ally gets sniped, let him get sniped. Don't throw your air away. It's the worst thing you can do. Never engage, and I mean never. Never, really never engage air if you have less ASF. Don't do it. Like, you have to play rational and not emotionally. And there's no way this can be actually a good move. Never do that. I mean, you were in such a good position, but going for air-to-ground units while not having enough ASF and overflowing mass. These are the two things which really cost you the air game, more or less. I mean, usually you could have already ended it if you wouldn't have gone for the gunships, but for more ASF, then forced an air fight, win air, and then you go for gunships, then you go for torps. Then you would have actually probably won the whole pond already. Or you could have done such a huge damage. But these two decisions really cost you a lot. And you're massively overbuilding pigeons. You have 10,000 power overflow. That's why I don't like these templates, because I usually you build one pigeon per 2 air factories, and even if you have like some spaces in between and it looks like not a beautiful air grid, it's better than overflowing 12,000 power. So there's no problem in having some space in your air grid if you don't overflow power. So now you're going for YOLO while being on 400 mass income. I don't like this, because you go for game ender when navy is static, when air is static. Like, you go for a game ender when navy won't win you the game, because like there are always like 20 battleships just fighting against each other, and they constantly trade equal, and the same on the other side. And air is kind of no option, because you have the same amount of ASF than your opponent, and there are everywhere are SAMs, so you can't get through. Then you go for a game end. But this stage is by far not reached. Like, you can easily, with an air win, you can easily crush this opponent. And this opponent like is even easier to crush. So there is no need for you to go for a game ender. You can achieve way more with way less mass investment if you just go for an air win. So that's I don't like this play in this moment. And if you do that, if you go for a game ender, I always build a how is it called? Stealth field. I always build a stealth field and like 2 or 3 SAMs because these random scouts can't get through them and get shot down by my SAMs. And this stealth field allows that the radar of the scouts don't see my YOLO and don't see all these NGs around one building, and he doesn't get suspicious. And if you go for a YOLO, then you have to really commit to it. Then you stop building an air grid, because then, like, if your plan is a YOLO, then your plan isn't building air. Especially not if you're on 450 mass income. Like 450 mass income is in general already too low to build a YOLO. My opinion, you should have at least like something like 600 mass to build a YOLO in decent speed. And if you have less mass, then you put also a lot of this mass in ASF and in Raspboys and in scaling an air grid. This YOLO won't finish in any decent timing. So if you really want to commit to the YOLO, then pause all your air production and pause this, reclaim even this PGen, and yeah. And you have a lot of Tech 3 NGs planned, but you don't have the mass to spend them. To spend, you don't have enough mass to actually use them. Because yes, they can be next to the YOLO, but there is no reason for it, because you can't spend the mass anyway. Well, I mean, in this position, going for scatters is right next to the pond is quite a decision. So dropping NGs, I will drop the NGs on the side island, because here are 5 maxes, but here are 20,000 mass in reclaim. So the mass isn't on the island. The mass is here, especially if you build a YOLO, you can't really upgrade the maxes. You really want to get the reclaim. It's far more important than these 5 maxes. And now an air fight. It seems very good for you. And now you just have to click in circles. I think you already used the stop command. I mean, the stop command, it isn't that bad, but it could be, like, you can also be way more effective when you don't use the stop command. But I mean, you won the air fight, that's exact. I mean, this could have happened already 20 minutes ago. And then you could have dropped this. This would be way easier. And you could have topped after that even this pond, and he would have probably won too. So you could have won both ponds with your air if you would have just kept a bit longer building ASF and not going for these gunships or going later for these tops. And I think you should really scout more regularly. Just have a disperse move to all these different sides, and then have one disperse move in the back, so you have everywhere here like waypoints, and then you click one time here, so after the scout flies, for example, here, it goes here, and after it flies here, it goes here. So then you have a full scout of the whole map. I think you know it yourself. I don't have to comment that. In 5 minutes, I think it's gonna be earlier. And I mean, your drop died here. It would be, as I said, far better to drop here, because then the drop would be alive and you get even more mass. But okay. Like, usually it's a better decision to drop reclaim than to drop maxes at these stages, because there's just so much more mass. And now your scouting is just like, you want to spread them out. You don't want to have one big clump of scouts flying over the base. You want to split them and use the disperse command. I think it's Shift G or something. You have to look. Yeah, here, distribute orders. Yeah, just make your own hotkeys there if you don't have it. This is very important for scouting, and also useful for many other things. Because now you see your scouts flying. Okay, now you're doing it. Okay, that's good, but this is something you should have done earlier already. So he's now going for strats. This is a very important information, right? And the problem is, you still have no Omni. Like, really, if your mid guy isn't building Omni, then tell him to build an Omni for you. And he's going for strats, but you have the air dominance. And now you shouldn't lose the air dominance, because there are coming strats to you, to your YOLO. And you really want to keep them to be able to kill all of them. And don't fly over these SAMs. Yeah, okay, good. So far, the 1100, your beat and mid guy is playing really well. I mean, he has Tech 2 maxes, which is bad, but he's reclaiming well and one is spawned, doing all these shots, so that's totally good. Where are the strats coming from? Oh, here. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a friend of stratting someone, but I think it's a legit move, I guess. Yeah. Now the strat's coming here on the side island, and you really have to move your ass up there. And when you see that, when you see strats moving, first of all, that's good. You're not right-clicking them, otherwise they would make a curve. You go here, because you anticipate that the strat's gonna be here when your ASF are here. So that's a good move. And second, you build shields. You just spam everywhere shields. In best case, Tech 2, I would say, because Tech 2 is better for HP per build time. So you get more HP in the same time compared to building Tech 3 shields. So you just spam Tech 2 shields. And now, yeah, okay, I mean he has only, I don't know, 10 strats, so there's no real danger from that. And now you tend to overflow again because the YOLO is finished. So now you have to scale your air grid again and build it bigger. So I think the biggest problem in this air game was really the overflowing in the mid game. And well, there were some problems in the early game too, which lead to be like 2 minutes behind. But I mean, we're reviewing 800 rated players, so that's totally fine. And yeah, building too early air to ground units, that's another big problem. The overflow, these were the main problems, I would say. Really going too early without ASF dominance for air to ground units and overflowing. And if you fix these both things, I think you're really fine on air. Like, there's nothing really to criticize. I mean, there are of course like small things you can do better, but then if you would really eliminate these both problems, I see you really in mediocre 1000 rating. So that's totally fine, I think. And now, I mean, you have full air dominance. I would go probably for strats or something to kill SMDs, but yeah, or to find other ways. Like you could go for TML ACUs, SACUs, like support ACUs or something. But yeah.
Strategischer Start geortet.
And I would really give the maxes back to my Navy player, because I'm just overflowing it anyway. I mean, you lost nearly all your ASF just by suiciding them here. They had no real value, and you just donated a lot of reclaim. This wasn't a good move. I mean, you can do that if you have actually air-to-ground units to make them work then. But you just flew your ASF in and then they didn't come out, but you didn't really gain any advantage from that. I mean, at this point it's just a formality. I don't know what your teammates are doing. I mean, he has a lot of SMDs. You should really find ways to kill the SMDs, otherwise. Yeah.
Strategischer Start geortet.
I mean, they would actually come through now, and now you shift your target. That's a big problem. If you have a YOLO, you want to keep on the target. You don't want to switch the target, even if you fire like 5 or 6 or 7 nukes. You want to continue on the target, At some point there are just so many SMDs and NGs that it doesn't make any sense. But in this case, with this amount of SMDs, you can easily break through. So keep going, even though it seems like it doesn't have an impact, you really want to keep going.
Strategischer Start geortet.
I mean, I don't know what his purpose is, because yes, he has a salvation, but even if he fires, you just right click the shield and then the salvation can't do anything.
Strategischer Start geortet.
So yeah, that's a good decision. You just selected your Tech 1 NGs, and you really need to and so you selected the wrong NGs, and when the shield broke down, you can't assist it anymore. So when I see this, I don't try to assist this shield. I try to build a new shield here in the cover of this Tech 3 shield, because the travel time is just too long. I want to have the shield right next to my NGs, and then I also have a fully restored shield with 21,000 HP. So I would build a new shield.
Commander wird angegriffen.
I mean, you're lucky in this case that it didn't die, but yeah, just right click a shield when you see RT incoming, and with all engineers. Yeah.
Strategischer Start geortet.
And target here. Like, there's no reason to not target this. I mean, these battleships gonna kill it anyway, so probably it's better to go for this. But yeah. But I don't know why he didn't went for a Paragon. If he would have went for a Paragon somewhere here, he could have probably won that game. And I mean,
Commander
you're overflowing
wird angegriffen.
a lot of mass. Well, you're lucky. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I mean, did he focus the shield so he can then kill the YOLO with the salvation? Or did it just die because of the explosion? I mean, if he would have sent two support ACUs with shields, this YOLO would be dead, because you didn't have enough teleprotection. And what I also can recommend, go for gun upgrades in this case. It can be really helpful to deal with that, especially if you're Siren and have laser and gun upgrade. You can deal so much damage. It's really effective. Yeah, GG. I think, yeah, I mean, in the late game that happens also a lot to me, because the game was basically won and then you just sit back and don't really focus on having a good eco balance and you kind of give a shit about it. But yeah, I think I've explained everything. The main problem were building air-to-ground units when you haven't had the air dominance. You overflowed quite a lot, especially in the mid game, and in the early game I think the biggest problem was going early for the Tech 2 Air HQ, and yeah, probably unpausing maxes which shouldn't be unpaused and pausing maxes which should be paused. So yeah, I think these were the biggest problems. Otherwise, it was quite decent. Otherwise, it was quite a good game. And yeah, I hope you could learn from it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you next time.